A very good afternoon to everyone. I am Mayank Kumari, VP Strategy and Governance and Platform Services team for AI-COO from Wells Fargo. I'll be your host for this session. And thank you for making this a priority to join and during start of the week. And I'm sure you will hear from best of the best from people who are part of the government, NASCOM, and Wells Fargo. The Academy Grand Challenge has been launched in partnership with Wells Fargo, Telangana AI Mission, and NASCOM. In this challenge, we are aiming to foster the entrepreneurial spirit amongst the students by giving them opportunity to solve two use cases, one from technology and other from analytics. Wells Fargo want to be reflecting of where the industry is heading. World is evolving towards digital technology, including banking industry, with a data-centric approach, developing machine learning and artificial intelligence. So Wells Fargo, in association with Telangana AI Mission and NASCOM, would like to give opportunity to all the students of third and fourth year to work on these use cases and let them submit their creative, technical, and analytic solutions. The neobank use case is an endeavor to visualize what the bank of the future will look like. This is also an example of how the technologies such as AI, metaverse, etc. can be leveraged to implement digital transformation for consumer-facing enterprises. While solving this use case, the student will be able to increase their awareness about the real-world implementation of new age technologies. On the other hand, the asset bubble use case, the attempt is only to develop a solution, but also to understand what influences the stock markets around the world. Working on this use case will provide the insight to the students into the working financial system and how technologies such as AI can be leveraged to avail various benefits. These are two use cases built by our SMEs of Wells Fargo, and you will get ample time to ask them enough questions and get your clarifications about how to solve it. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Praveen Mukapati, Head of Telangana AI Mission and an alumnus of IIM Bangalore. IIM Bangalore and Texas A&M University and Osmania University, who is spearheading the charter of developing the AI ecosystem for Telangana state in collaboration with the government. Mr. Praveen Mukapati, over to you.
Thank you, Mayank. Thank you so much for that introduction. Welcome, everyone. This definitely is a momentous occasion for us, with respect to this academic grand challenge. You've already heard Mayank talk about, what this challenge is about, the different use cases. But I just would like to spend a couple of minutes, talking about it. But before that, I'm also very pleased to see Mr. Jayesh Ranjan also joined this call, and also Ms. Ramadevi from the Emerging Technologies Wing. They have been strong supporters of Telangana AI Mission, and I'm really glad that they're sharing this space with us. Now, with respect to this partnership, I think it's really an amazing thing that we've been able to partner with Wells Fargo. This partnership is very crucial, especially in the context of nurturing entrepreneurial spirit among the student community. And we felt that it's important that we don't restrict it to the students of Telangana, but keep it open for the wider student community across the country. We believe students hold the future for building India's decade, and more importantly, help realize the $5 trillion economy for our country. And from that point of view, we will continue to remain committed towards further development of the vibrant AI ecosystem that we have in Telangana. I also take this opportunity to thank the colleagues from Wells Fargo joining in, and also my colleagues from NASCOM, and more importantly, the students who are also watching this webinar. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Mayank, over to you.
Hey everyone, good afternoon, and thanks Praveen and Mayank for the introduction. And first of all, thank you for all registering for this academic grand challenge. So as Mayank mentioned, so I am Suresh Reddy and I am a distinguished engineer with Wells Fargo and part of digital technology and innovation. Our team is primarily responsible for building digital channel experiences like online banking and mobile banking for our customers. And we also constantly look at innovative technologies coming in the market and try to adapt them to make our customers' experiences better. So today I'm here to talk about the neobank challenge. Right, so hope all of you must have gone through the problem statement document that we have shared with the bank only through the digital channels, and they never go to branch because the branch never exists in the first place. So the next question is, so why do we even need it in the first place, right? And I would say primarily it is for the young customers like you who have their digital experience very early in your life, right? In the sense like all of you must be having the mobiles and you will be using these mobiles for the shopping on Amazon or booking tickets, watching movies and so on, right? So why we can't do this banking as well on the mobile channels is the problem statement, right? Because every customer wants the convenience and the comfort, and they want the banking to be available at their fingertips. So that is why it is our endeavor to provide these digital services without really expecting the customer to walk into the branch and waste their time, right? So while some of the banking services are already provided on mobile and online channels, there are still some situations where we visit the branch and stand in a queue for our turn to get serviced. For example, it could be some customers who are not aware of how to use these mobile phones to access these banking services. And in some cases, though the customers are aware of using their mobiles, but they are afraid that their money may be misutilized or they may be losing that money, right? And in some cases, some features that are available on the branch may not be available in the online, right? So these are the various scenarios that we really want to address in the problem that you are trying to solve, right? So let us look at what are the challenges with the digital channels, right? So the digital channels works very well for the users who are very tech savvy, right? Like all of you. But if we need to extend this to the users in the rural areas, we need to address few concerns. So how to make it very easy and intuitive for them to use this from the mobile. And also we need to provide probably the experience in the language that they are comfortable and familiar with. And because we can't expect everyone to know English to use our app, right? And also the users from rural places, or for that matter, all the users are skeptical about the security and safety of their money on the digital channels. So it is very imperative that we should consider the security aspect very critically and seriously while building these digital applications. Right. So let us look at, like, is this really worth the effort? Though if you can put all your effort and then try to build these digital channels, if the customers don't use it, so what is the point? So let us look at some examples there, right? So we may think that the rural area customers may never adopt these things, but let's take an example from the India itself, right? So until way back in 2016, so there was less usage of smartphones, and even if they use, the mobile data plans were expensive. So, but the moment Jio offered the affordable data plans, so everyone adapted and started using YouTube, WhatsApp, and all those things, which they never used earlier, right? So similarly, after demonetization, customers and businesses have started adopting the payment applications like Paytm, Google Pay, Phone Pay, etc. So now all these users are able to use it very seamlessly, right? So what is the difference here? Because we created the applications or the experiences which are very easy for the customers to use, right? So that is the only bottom line here, right? So in our solution or in the solution that you are going to build, we expect the similar experience for the customers. It should be easy to use. At the same time, it should be secure enough, correct? But so we talked so much about the customer's perspective, but why banks have to build it in the first place, right? So let's touch upon that. So if we look at the other side, how banks will get benefited, the primary factor here is the low cost. Since neobanks do not have to invest in the physical branches and infrastructure, they are able to enjoy the lower operational costs, right? And as a result, neobanks are able to pass these benefits onto their customers by way of lower fees and high interest rates on the deposits. Also, their focus is on providing best customer experience and personalized banking experience based on the customer's data and behavior. So because they build these systems purely in the digital fashion, it is possible for them to integrate with any third parties like Amazon, right? So when you're buying something, I can basically partner with Amazon and then try to offer some loans or whatever you call it, right? And also they can integrate with the systems like WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever, and then provide the banking services on these platforms itself, because that is where most of our younger generation customers are going to spend their time. So it is important that we provide the banking services also at the same place. Right. So let's come back to the problem statement and what we have to really solve as a part of this challenge. So the bare minimum, the customer should be able to open the accounts digitally by providing something called KYC. So KYC is know your customer, right? So this is the process that the banks follow to make sure that whoever is applying to open an account, they are legitimate customers, right? They are not like fraudsters or some terrorists or whatever, right? So they have to make sure that whoever is banking with us is a nice person, right? So that's why they'll be looking at all the proof documents that you submit and ensure that you're a good person, and then they'll be able to open that account, right? This is something that you need to provide in your solution, like accept in the KYC documents and then provide, make the account opener process seamless for the customers. And also we need to support making the funds transfers via UPI that you must be knowing already. If you are using Paytm or PhonePe or Google Pay, right? So you are already using UPI behind the scenes. And then Web3 is another technology that allows us to do the funds transfer seamlessly, which is backed by blockchain. Please read about it. Then you will understand the true power of it and then how you can basically utilize it in your solution. Right. Some of the other aspects are basically looking at the portfolio. So let us say I have a deposit account, I have a loan account, I have a credit card, and so on. Right. If you can show me this entire portfolio in a single place, and also tell me like this is the pattern that this is the place where you spend more money, and this is your saving pattern, and so on. Right. So that will help the customers to plan their financial health well. Right. And also provide any investment advice based on the machine learning. Right, if you know the customer spending pattern or whatever, probably you can help them by providing the investment advice so that they can better handle their finances. On the top of it, whatever the solution that you are going to build should be able to integrate with any other channels. Right, one example that I have mentioned is online banking. The same way, it should be able to easily integrate with mobiles, or it could be with the social media, or it could be with any merchants outside, right? So you have to, so your system should be very open to integrate with any other channel that comes in the future as well. So while you do this, ensure that the system is secure, because that is the bottom line, right? If someone has to use your system because it has to do with the money, you have to make sure that it is secure. It could be during the authentication or when you're making the payments or whatever, right? So in every interaction that the customer does, make sure that it is secure and it is highly available, right? Because we don't have the branches, right? So today, if you look at, if your mobile banking doesn't work, probably you can walk into a branch to complete the transaction. But here we are talking about a neobank. So it is very important that we need to keep our system up and running all the time, right? And then it should be scalable. So by the virtue of your product being great, so today you may start with 1,000 users, and suddenly if it becomes popular, more and more customers will start using your banking services. So you should be able to scale it easily for more users. And of course, it should be fast enough, right? No one likes the slow systems, and it should be stable, right? So these are the primary requirements, and we called out these requirements in the problem definition document as well. Please go through it. And then we recommended some technology stack. It was just a recommendation, but feel free to use any technology stack that you want to use to build these systems. And then we also provided some example neobanks that are already there in India. So just go through and see what they really do, and then use your creativity to come up with better features or better experiences, whichever you feel are relevant. And then we provided some references in terms of the literature. Let us say if you want to open an account, what really typically happens in a bank, right? As I talked about earlier, the KYC, filling up the forms, providing the identity documents, and so on. Similarly, payments, NEFT, RTGS, and UPI, and so on. The similar way, value-added services like the portfolio summary, right, spending pattern, right, chartboards, and so on, right? So all these things are already there in some or the other form, but need not necessarily a part of neobank as we speak. So please do some research before you fill up the approach document and submit. Yeah, so that is pretty much I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I think we will open up for the questions in the next 10 minutes or so, after our other use cases also talked about. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Mayank.
Okay, thank you. Can someone confirm if they can hear me okay? I just saw a couple of comments in the chat.
I can hear you clearly, Mayank.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can see some questions being posted. Keep them coming. We will have a section dedicated for the question as well. But if you have something specific to be asked for either of the use cases, please go ahead and post it so that we can queue it up for you. Okay, now next we have Mr. Manish Pandey. Manish holds a master's degree in statistics from IIT Kanpur, and he leads the delivery for enterprise AI-COE at Wells Fargo, India, and Philippines. In this role, he is responsible for development and delivery of AI/ML initiatives within COO functions. Along with Manish, we also have Mr. Naveen Rathani. Naveen holds master's degree in mathematics from BITS Pilani. Naveen is a AVP within Wells Fargo with 10 years of cross-vertical experience in advanced analytics and data sciences. Both Manish and Naveen will be talking about the asset bubble use cases. Please, over to you, Manish.
Thank you, Mayank. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all the participants. At any point, if you cannot hear me, please raise your hand or let me know. So we are going to give you a brief overview of the asset bubble challenge. And again, you'd agree that markets are one of the most common sources for wealth creation for common populace, whether it's direct investment through equity markets or whether it's indirect investment through the SIPs or the mutual funds or the LICs and so on. And I'm sure most of you would have heard about the big crash which came coming at the onset of the pandemic a few years back. And not to mention that once the big crash came in, there was also a very big joyride towards the last end of the pandemic. Now, these cycles keep coming, and we saw one of the recent cycles coming in when the Russia and the Ukraine conflict started in. So it's not very good as a common investor whenever these big crashes are happening. And if there's a way you can actually kind of predict whether something like this is going to happen or not. Now, you cannot predict whether some of these big geopolitical events are going to happen or not. But there are always some telltale signs of some of these common financial issues. For example, the system could have too much speculation, or there could be too much debt in the system, or there could be a loose credit as well. So if we can make a model, or if we can use predictive analytics to tell whether a market is going to take a big jump in the south. And if you can do that, you can help out your fellow investors to take a call whether to exit the markets or stay in the markets. Now, this use case is kind of built up in the backdrop of the US markets, but it is pretty much consistent with how the world economy works. So if you can figure out one piece, you can pretty much apply the same solution to other markets as well. Now, one of the major motivation behind giving this open-ended problem from our perspective is to let the participant face all the steps of a data science solution. So it's not always about fancy algorithms. We put a lot of focus on how we can actually define our problem statement, how we can generate some of the common hypotheses, how we can even go and hunt out the right data set to actually solve our problem. And when you actually do all of these steps correctly, you can actually use the spice of the machine learning to solve your business problem. And with this problem statement, our motivation is to let you have the experience of all these three common stages. So I will pass it over to Naveen to give you additional background on the use case, on the data sets, as well as what are our evaluation criteria. Naveen, over to you.
Thanks, Manish. Hi, everyone. I'm Naveen. Just to give you some additional background to what Manish was talking about. So the idea here is not to get to an end state where we are giving a certain probability at the end of the day of whether a market crash would happen in 2022 or not. That's really the stuff of oracles. So we do understand that limitation. But at the end of the day, the idea is to at least reach to a robust framework through which we can at least understand a portion of that to basically explain some part of that particular phenomena. And it is around that if you look at the objective of what we're trying to get to is to understand through predictive analytics and by making sure that we're able to generate one robust
Naveen, I think I lost you for a second.
Hi, Manish, could you please take this up? I think.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, sorry for the technical issues here. So as Naveen was saying that it's a pretty much open-ended problem. We're not giving you any single data set, just like a lot of traditional hackathons gives you, because the focus over there is to arrive for a certain metric, how much accurate you are, what is your probability, and so on. We want you to experience, as I said earlier, we want you to experience all the phases of the data science solution. And that means that you are free to, can someone put Naveen on the mute, please? I think his network. Okay, thank you. Yep. So the data sets are pretty much open-ended right now. So in a way that you are free to assume I can look at S&P, I can look at Dow and Jones. Even if you want to go a little bit crazy, you can kind of look at multiple markets together within the US geography. But the data set is for you to create. How are you actually defining the problem? Like, what is my definition of a market crash here? If you can define it accurately, it will kind of lead you to the place on, what are the information I need to keep? What are the data sets I need to work with? And that's how you can actually go about it. Now, once you identify or define your definition of the market crash, you can start collating some of the data sets. And in the problem statement, we have given you some of the indicators. And as I said, these are not exhaustive indicators. You can add something here, you can leave something here. But these are just a guidance, as I said, right? There could be too much depth in the system. So do you need a data point to justify it, right? You can also look at the housing prices as well. Are they really going over the top? And this was one of the very important indicators at the onset of the 2008 financial crisis as well. So each of these small nuggets of information will be driven by how you are defining the particular use case, and then you can actually go on to create your final data set. Now, your end solution may or may not be a very specific machine learning model. Now, all we are looking for is a direction, how much confidence you have in your kind of direction, saying that in the next quarter, for example, I can expect a market crash to happen. So you need to also define what is the definition of the market crash in this particular case. Now, moving on to the evaluation criteria, we are going to judge our submissions based on your innovation of the solution. So how you actually define the market crash? It's a very generic term, and everybody has a different formulation of the same thing. So we'll look for innovation in the definition. We'll also look for the technical soundness of the approach. So if you tell us that this is my expectation or this is my probability of a market crash in a certain time frame, how did you actually arrive at it? How are the mathematical fundamentals looking out of it? What is the research you have done to actually justify your methodology? What are the exhaustive data sets you have used in order to justify your model? And anything else, in terms of what are the very uncommon information you can bring out? So all this information you have talked about are very common things, but is there anything you have researched and you have found that it could drive us some very peculiar observations? So that's also very welcome. In the appendix, you will also see one of the very important points, and I've been emphasizing on that you need to ensure that your definition of crash is very clear. And to help you out, we have provided you some of the articles from the previous market crashes or some of the things which are happening right now in terms of how Feds are behaving, how inflation is going on. So you can take all of that information together and you can come up with the definition of the problem statement, and then you can start working on the data set. So that's pretty much from my side. Mayank, over to you.
Thank you, Manish. I see a couple of hands raised. It would be in the chat, but it would be great if you could just post your question so that we can answer it. Yeah. And now moving on to the next keynote address by Shri Jayesh Ranjan, the third pillar of the whole program. Mr. Jayesh Ranjan is the Principal Secretary of the Industries and Commerce and Informational Technology Department of the Telangana government. He was the All India topper of his IAS batch of 1992. He also holds degree from IIM Bangalore, and in the current role, his assignments involve developing policy frameworks, attracting new investments, identifying opportunities for utilizing IT in various government processes. Over to you, Shri Jayesh Ranjanji.
Thank you very much. Good evening to all the panelists, to all the participants. I would like to begin by, first of all, complimenting the Wells Fargo team for putting together this event. This is, in my opinion, a very good model of corporates sourcing innovation. And what better way than to put open a challenge with some actual pain points, some problem statements that you face, and encouraging students to actually work on it. I see tremendous value in this approach. And in fact, I myself have been speaking about it on various forums. See, today, I mean, in a way, it is a win-win for all the three stakeholders. First of all, for the students, this is a great opportunity to taste what it takes to become an entrepreneur. While some of you might be thinking as a student itself that when you complete your course, instead of joining some corporate group or going for some other kind of career, you yourself would like to become an entrepreneur. And I know that at some point in time, many more students who complete their studies, join some organization, actually get back into entrepreneurship. So I'm very, very confident that looking at the trend in the world and also in our country, the majority of you will end up being entrepreneurs. And therefore, why not prepare for that journey from an early stage, from a college stage? So these are the ways in which you can get a very hands-on kind of a practice of becoming an entrepreneur. The problem statement is before you. You are expected to bring appropriate technology to find a solution. Possibly, I'm not completely aware, but possibly you will be expected to work as a team rather than working individually. And therefore, you would also get some hang on how to you put together a team, because every person brings complementary skills to the team. And most importantly, how do you kind of create a solution or a product which matters to your client, in which case it is Wells Fargo. So even though Wells Fargo people have been generous, telling that you need not come up with a very precise solution, as long as you show the direction, they'll be willing to take it forward. But of course, the closer you are to meeting their expectations, the better will that be. So please do take up this opportunity of actually trying your hand at preparing a project or a solution that eventually will get into action through the effort of Wells Fargo. And the problem statement that they are mentioning is something of relevance to all of us. I mean, while Wells Fargo, for them, it is a matter of their day-to-day activity, but for the government also, financial inclusion, digitalization, ensuring that the next billion internet users are digitally savvy, particularly in terms of their digital payments, financial transactions. How do you ensure security of those financial transactions, etc., etc., which is the way in which the customer experience is far superior than, let us say, physical transactions, etc. So these are very important issues for the government as well. So I'm happy that a problem statement of this kind has been posed before you. As I said, I'll also like to compliment Wells Fargo, because for them also, see, while it is not to say that people inside your organization lack awareness or understanding or knowledge of the technology, but many times, and I've seen this in very, very marquee companies also, an outsider's perspective sometimes actually opens a whole new world. It helps you understand the problem from a completely different way. So getting the motivated students work on this problem hopefully will help you find something or get into something which your own team might not have been able to potentially develop in that way. So it can be a very good opportunity. And this can also help you to regularly run corporate innovation programs with our students, with our startup communities, with our MSMEs, etc., etc. As you would have known by now, TM is a joint effort between the Telangana government and NASSCOM. So we can get you the best of the corporate sector, the private sector through NASSCOM members who are all, many of them have a very strong prowess in artificial intelligence. As a government, we can help you in accessing databases, use cases, POCs, mentoring, and so on and so forth. So I do hope that what you are doing today is something which is just the beginning of a long-term relation with us in the TM and also with us in Telangana government. I would also make one more request. See, when the project goes underway, I have seen this in some other context, and therefore, in a way, I'm speaking from experience. One level of engagement is that at the end of it, when all the startups, rather all the student teams have completed their exercise, then someone evaluates, and some are found to be average, some are found to be below average, and then you kind of work with only a few chosen ones. The other is that you dedicate some resources from your organization who continue to engage with these student teams on a regular basis. So at some point in time, if there's some guidance required on technology or the data stuff, excuse me, or any other aspect, and you feel that they're completely deviating from what was expected from them, they can be corrected at that point in time, rather than waiting till the very end and then only kind of providing some general or generic kind of feedback. But I'm sure you would have thought through all these things. And through TM also, I would request Praveen and Rama Devi and others to be very supportive of this initiative. Tomorrow, this can become a very good template for other corporates also to follow. While this is an objective of TM, that we bring more and more corporates to work with our startup community, with our students community, we don't have too many examples of getting it done. So, and a very marquee company like Wells Fargo has come forward. So it is a matter of pride for us as well. So once again, I convey my best wishes to all the student participants. And at some point in time, let us take stock again on how this whole exercise has gone through. And whatever support or help is required from our side, we'll be very, very happy to provide.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri Jayesh, Ranjan ji. Thank you for your valuable ideas and a lot of the advice you have given for us to consider and work on it. We will definitely look into it and work with NASCOM team and other key engagement team and try to incorporate that. Thank you so much.